Hi, I'm Natalia,
Hi, I'm Rachel.
and this is our dissection of the fetal pig.
We're in the phylum Chordata of the kingdom Animalia, and this is the Mammalia class. Characteristic of the Mammalia is that they have hair, and if you can see, there's a little tuft of hair on his chinny chin chin, and a few pieces by his eye. It has several sections: the head, neck, trunk, and tail. Part of the trunk is the thorax and abdomen. Some noticeable features are the ear, eye, the snout. You can see a small tongue coming out of the mouth. We have paired legs, which here is the elbow. Our wrist has the joint. So the pig is an omnivore, which means that it eats carnivorously and plant life. With that, it has canines, which you can see two little canine teeth, and then this back side is where it would develop high crown molars and incisors. You can also see little teeth underneath the tongue. Another thing, while we have the mouth open, you can see this rigid area is the bony hard palate, which mammals are known to have, with a smooth. You can also see little teeth underneath the tongue. Another thing, while we have the mouth open, you can see this rigid area is the bony hard palate, which mammals are known to have, with a smooth, soft palate underneath. You can see this thick layer of fat underneath the skin layer for warmth, which it probably has the thicker layer because, as we see, its body isn't fully covered with hair, so the hair is not there for warmth.
Pig skin is naturally smooth and dry because they do not have sweat glands like humans do. Skin is the protective outer covering of the body, and it regulates body temperature and body fluids. Like stated before, pigs do have hair, which are very tough and hard. The skin is an organ made up of multiple layers: the epidermis, dermis, and fatty layer.
We see the trachea is right here underneath the mouth, where air and gases pass through straight to the lungs, which are in the chest cavity and the thorax. We can see that these are not pieces of fat, they're actually glands on each side of the trachea and the throat. We see some more right here on the flaps. Okay, here's the respiratory system. We travel through the larynx to the trachea, which is this little small tube, straight down to the lungs, which a nice difference from the pig to other mammals like us. It actually has 3 lobes on each side, a grand total of 7 for its lungs. You can see here is the first lobe of the right, second, and third. This is the first lobe on the left, second, third, and it shares a middle lobe. So the air passes through the trachea into bronchi, which you can see small, it's almost vein-like tubes to the bronchioles, which passes to the alveoli, which are bulb-like, and to the capillaries, which does oxygen or gas exchange.
The umbilical cord has an umbilical vein, the largest one, in which oxygenated blood is transferred to the fetus. Umbilical arteries remove partially oxygenated blood from the fetus. The small opening underneath is the allantoic duct, which is connected to the allantoic bladder and removes metabolic waste from the fetus. The 2 arteries are tied off.
Here we're going to look at the underside of the umbilical cord. We see that this top one is the vein, which connects to the bottom side of the liver. And then we can see on both sides of the urinary bladder, we have the arteries, and then the bladder that connects to dispose of waste. We can see that the heart is right here. In the middle, we have a coronary artery and vein that separates the right and left ventricle sides. We pull it out. We can see the right auricle and the left auricle. And this is our pulmonary artery, and on top of it is a aortic arch. Backside we can see the multiple arteries leading out of the heart. After the removal of the heart, we see this little hole there. That is actually an adaptation, fetal adaptation, because at the fetus stage, it's not breathing, it's not using its lungs, it's using its mother's to breathe. So all of this passes from the umbilical cord straight to the heart through this hole. Here we can see a model of the dog heart, which is very similar because most mammals have a four-chambered heart. Here we can see the right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Here is the pulmonary artery leaving the right ventricle. This has low oxygen, and it transports back through the lungs to get oxygen. Then we see the aorta valve, which is coming actually from the left ventricle, is highly oxygenated, and it's going to go through the entire system of the body. And then we see this large, that's the superior vena cava, which goes through the entire back portion.
The digestive system is classified as monogastric, which is the same type of digestive system humans have. The food travels from the mouth, where it is chewed and broken down, and goes to the stomach through the esophagus, which lies underneath the trachea. As you can see, it is very smooth and muscular. Next is the stomach, located between the end of the esophagus and the beginning of the small intestine. The cardiac sphincter at the top controls the passageway of food from the esophagus to the stomach. Food is mixed with acidic gastric juices and further broken down. The pyloric sphincter controls the passageway of food from the stomach to the first portion of the small intestine called the duodenum, which digestion and absorption of fat occurs. Inside the stomach, the green substance is called meconium. It's green because of the bile that came in contact with the mucus from the meconium. Meconium is not food, but the combination of old epithelial cells, mucus, and amniotic fluids. In human, meconium may be released from a distressed baby to the placenta during labors, and doctors have to worry about it getting into the lungs. After the stomach, food moves to the small intestine, made up of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The jejunum and ileum absorbs nutrients and digests chyme. At the end of the small intestine, the ileocecal valve regulates the passage of material to the large intestine. The cecum is located at the beginning of the large intestine. It has little function to the pig, but in other animals like rabbits and horses, it is very important and is larger in the pig than in humans. The large intestine digests bacteria, reabsorbs water, and forms feces, and it consists of the colon and rectum. The rectum is straight, and it forms feces, and it transports feces to the anus. Unlike the human liver that has 4 lobes, the pig has 7. The liver metabolizes carbohydrates and fats, produces bile and the duodenum, which is stored in the gallbladder, and moves to the duodenum through the bile duct. The liver also stores and regulates vitamins, iron, glycogen, and copper. It also has epithelial cells called hepatocytes and detoxify toxins and poisons like alcohol. Like I said earlier, the gallbladder stores bile from the liver and it is transferred to the duodenum through the bile duct. It is under the right lobe of the liver and it appears like a round green pea. Okay.
All right, so for the endocrine system, which produces insulin, glucagon, and hormones, like sugar. First, we'll talk about the spleen, which is a smooth portion to the left of the stomach. It removes iron and other useful components before the breakdown of blood cells. It also serves as an immune function by initiating responses by T and B cells. Underneath the spleen and the stomach, you see this little rough portion. Move the rectum real quick. That is our pancreas. It's very small. It secretes digestive juices into the duodenum juice, which is composed of water, electrolytes, and enzymes. It produces insulin, glucagon, and hormones, like sugar. First, we'll talk about the spleen, which is a smooth portion to the left of the stomach. It removes iron and other useful components before the breakdown of blood cells. It also serves as an immune function by initiating responses by T and B cells. Underneath the spleen and the stomach, you see this little rough portion. Move the rectum real quick. That is our pancreas. It's very small. It secretes digestive juices into the duodenum juice, which is composed of water, electrolytes, and enzymes.
The excretory system is responsible for the removal of liquid nitrogenous waste from the body in the form of urine. The kidneys are the bean-shaped organs. They have a membrane over them called the peritoneum. The kidneys' function is the excretion of substances as ions, water, urea, and other nitrogenous waste. It plays an important role in homeostasis. It regulates the volume and composition of the blood. The ureter is this really small tube that connects the kidney to the bladder. It transports the urine from the kidney to the bladder and later excretes it.
Skull, and you can see the top view of the lobes, both sides. And we'll go to the model to show you specific functions. So for the frontal lobe, that controls the personality side of the piglet. Then we will do the parietal lobe, which is the sensory input and language abilities. The occipital lobe is in the back portion of it and interprets visual impulses. Then this pink mass is the cerebellum. That goes for the balance and equilibrium, muscle tone, motor coordination. And then if we flip it over, we can see the nerves. This front portion is the olfactory bulb, which receives chemosensory signals from the nasal cavity. This darker portion, the yellow, is the pituitary gland. That helps function the kidneys in the endocrine system. And then the bottom portion is the medulla oblongata, which
controls swallowing, digestion, and heartbeat. Sensory and motor impulses come from the nervous system, and as you know, nerve impulses are transmitted along neurons. On the other side, the nervous system in mammals consists of the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and nerves along the spinal column. The peripheral nervous system connects the central nervous system to the organs and other regions of the body. It is divided to sensory and motor pathways. The motor pathways include voluntary and involuntary nervous system. The voluntary nervous system is a control of skeletal muscle. In other words, it is the movement controlled by thought. Involuntary nervous system is involuntary body processes such as heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, and digestion. Sympathetic nervous system increases heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure and slows down the digestive processes when the body is going through stress. And on the other hand, the parasympathetic nervous system decreases heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and increases digestion. So in other words, the sympathetic system expends energy while the parasympathetic system conserves it.